A 50-ton animal with a 9-meter neck is a structural paradox. Bones that should buckle, lungs that should collapse, a body that should crush itself under its own gravity. And yet, this dinosaur walked the earth for 100 million years. The answer is not extra, thick bones, or supernatural muscle. It's a physiological trick that turned the skeleton into a swarm of air pockets. The bones weren't solid, they were hollow. This is not a monster movie. It's a paleobiology investigation. We'll reverse engineer a sauropod like detectives, exposing the hidden systems that let it function as a living crane. And the first question is, how do you even breathe through a throat that long? The skeleton in front of you is the Giraffatitan mount at the Museum for Naturkunde Berlin. 13 meters tall, almost 23 meters long, a femur taller than a human. Ribs that arch like vaulted ceilings. From the viewing platform, you look up into a rib cage large enough to park a delivery van. For decades, the first explanation was simple. An animal this heavy couldn't possibly support itself on land. It must have lived in swamps, buoyed by water, its long neck acting as a snorkel. The problem is, physics doesn't agree. Water pressure at even 2 meters depth would collapse the animal's lungs. A snorkel neck that long would create a pressure differential no diaphragm could overcome. The animal would suffocate the moment it stepped into deep water. The swamp theory was dead before it walked onto dry land. So we start again. Something with the mass of a small office block stood on 4 legs and moved. The question is, what kept it from buckling? Scale up a Komodo dragon to sauropod dimensions, and the skeleton snaps under its own weight before the creature takes a single breath. Limb bones in a scaled-up lizard would increase 8-fold in mass for every doubling of height. Muscle force wouldn't keep pace. The joints would shatter. The heart couldn't push blood to the brain. The creature would cook itself from the inside, unable to shed metabolic heat. Sauropods didn't follow the lizard blueprint. They tore it up entirely and started from something else. The first innovation sits inside the vertebrae. In 2003, Matthew Waddell published a study on what he called vertebral pneumaticity. That's air-filled cavities inside the bones, not empty marrow spaces like in mammal bones. Active invasion points where the respiratory system pushed diverticula. Thin, walled sacs, deep into the skeleton. Take a cervical vertebra from a Giraffatitan. Externally, it looks massive, a spool of bone the size of a wheelbarrow. Saw it in half, and the inside looks like a honeycomb. Struts of bone, arches of mineralized tissue, and empty space. Up to 40% empty space. The bone didn't lose strength, it lost weight. A truss bridge doesn't collapse because it has open triangles. It's lighter because it removes material where stress doesn't flow. The sauropod vertebra does the same thing at a microscopic level. Trabeculae, tiny bone struts, align along load lines. Remove the air sacs, and the skeleton might weigh 50% more. That's a 50-ton animal carrying a skeleton that belonged to a 30-ton animal. Weidl's work with modern birds confirmed the mechanism. When a bird breathes, cervical air sacs inflate and press into the vertebrae. The same exit points exist in sauropod fossils, the same texture, the same trabecular pattern. It's not a theory, it's a signature left in stone. The bones testify. The animal was engineered for lightness. But light bones aren't enough. The weight still had to meet the ground. Sauropod limbs are not lizard limbs. They're not sprawled to the side. They're columns, straight, vertical, and massive. The femur is a pillar. The humerus is a pillar.
The joints are thick, heavily cartilage, capped, and angled so the load travels straight down through the bone shaft into the ground. Trackway evidence from the Morrison Formation shows this.
Footprints are deep, widely spaced, and aligned in parallel rows. The tail never dragged. The center of mass set directly over the hind limbs. Think of a modern elephant. Its legs are straight for the same reason.
Columnar posture reduces bending stress. Now scale that up. A large bull elephant weighs about 6 tons. A Giraffatitan weighed somewhere between 30 and 50 tons. 5 to 8 elephants standing on one set of legs.
The engineering holds because the skeleton is light and the legs are straight. But stable doesn't mean practical. The next crisis is the neck. 9 meters of neck. A giraffe's neck is about 2.5 meters. The sauropod isn't just a stretched giraffe. It's a giraffe multiplied by 3.5. The problems multiply too. First, structural. That 9-meter beam of bone and muscle acts as a lever. Lift the head to vertical, and the moment arm, the torque around the shoulder, becomes enormous. The neck vertebrae must resist bending and compression simultaneously. Ligaments over the dorsal side must be thick enough to hold posture without constant muscular effort. Second, blood pressure. Giraffes solve this with a specialized heart and tight carotid rete, a network of blood vessels that equalizes pressure to the brain. Sauropods likely had something similar, but a longer column means higher pressure. The heart has to drive blood 9 meters vertically against gravity. A human heart couldn't manage 2 meters. A sauropod heart would need to be enormous, or the animal used some other method we haven't confirmed. Third, dead space. The trachea, the breathing tube, runs the entire length of that neck. In a mammal, every breath mixes fresh oxygen with stale air from the previous exhale. A 9-meter trachea holds a huge volume of used air. Every inhalation moves that dead air back into the lungs before fresh oxygen arrives. The inefficiency is massive, unless the lungs work differently. This is where the bird connection returns. Birds don't have tidal lungs like mammals. They have a unidirectional system. Air sacs act as bellows, pushing air through the lungs in one direction. Fresh air enters the posterior air sacs, flows across the gas, exchange surfaces, and exits out the anterior sacs. No mixing. Every breath delivers fresh oxygen. Sauropod pneumaticity. Those air-filled vertebrae is the left-behind signature of an air sac system that mirrored bird anatomy. Abdominal sacs, cervical sacs, interclavicular sacs. The evidence is in the bone texture. The exit points match bird morphology. A unidirectional lung system solves the dead space problem almost entirely. The trachea volume becomes irrelevant because the gas exchange surface never sees stale air. The neck didn't suffocate the animal. The neck evolved around the breathing system. Now the posture. For years, museum mounts post sauropods like Giraffatitan with necks rising vertically, swan-like, reaching high leaves. More recent work by Christian and Zemsky from the University of Bonn used digital modeling and range of motion studies on the mounted skeleton. They found something uncomfortable. The neck probably couldn't go fully vertical without disarticulating the vertebrae or tearing ligament attachments. The habitual posture, the one the animal held most of the time, was likely more horizontal or at a shallow upward angle. Not a swan, more like a vacuum cleaner hose sweeping an arc. The debate isn't settled. Some teams argue a moderate vertical reach was possible. The Giraffatitan specimen in Berlin has been remounted several times to reflect these reinterpretations. Every change in posture changes the animal's story. A horizontal neck means the animal fed across a wide arc without moving its legs. That's efficient. Walk less, eat more. A vertical neck means it reached up into conifer canopies that ground-level browsers couldn't access. That's less walking, lower competition. Both strategies have evidence. Tooth wear patterns from close relatives like Diplodocus show abrasive striations consistent with ground-level browsing. Stripped leaves, grit, and soil in the mouth. Brachiosaur-type teeth show a more focused wear pattern, perhaps from plucking higher, cleaner vegetation. The neck wasn't one solution. It was a set of solutions that evolved differently across different sauropod groups. Now the feeding bottleneck. A 40-ton animal growing rapidly needs an enormous energy intake, yet sauropod heads are tiny, a skull the size of a horse's on a body the size of a small building. The teeth are simple, peg-like, and were replaced continuously. In some taxa, the jaw had a narrow, cone-like arch for stripping leaves. In others, broader cropping surfaces, gastroliths, stomach stones, have been found associated with sauropod ribcages. The hypothesis is that they acted as a grinding mechanism, tumbling inside the gizzard to break down fibrous plant material that the teeth barely touched. The gun itself was vast, likely a fermentation chamber similar to a cow's rumen, bacteria breaking down cellulose over an extended period. Histologist P. Martin Sander and the University of Bonn Gigantism Research Group examined sauropod bone under polarized light. They found fibrolamellar bone, a fast-growing tissue with woven collagen fibers, indicative of rapid deposition. A hatchling Giraffatitan probably weighed under 5 kilograms. It reached multiple tons within the first decade of life and close to adult mass within 2 to 3 decades. That's a growth rate that demands constant intake. The small head seems paradoxical, but a small head is lighter. It allowed a longer neck, and the long neck covered more feeding surface per step. The animal substituted head mass for neck, reach, and let the gut do the processing. The metabolic question remains open. Fibrolamellar bone suggests growth rates that require something more than a fully ectothermic, lizard-like metabolism, but full endothermy, like a mammal, would produce crippling heat, dissipation problems. The large air sacs likely helped cool the animal internally. The sheer volume of the body made it a thermal flywheel, warming slowly, cooling slowly. What emerged was probably something intermediate, a physiological state we don't have a living example for. Pull back, everything connects. The air sacs lighten the skeleton and enable the unidirectional lung. The unidirectional lung solves the dead space breathing problem for a 9-meter neck. The light skeleton reduces load on the columnar limbs. The columnar limbs support rapid locomotion without joint failure. The small head and long neck maximize feeding radius with minimal energy expenditure. The gut ferments what the teeth barely process. The whole animal grows fast enough to reach invulnerable size quickly, passing through the predatory window in a few years. Each system depends on the others. You can't pick one adaptation and declare it the secret. The secret is the integration. The Giraffatitan mount in Berlin is not a monster. It's not a swamp beast. It's not an oversized lizard. It's a biological truss structure. A self-lightening, self-ventilating, high-throughput mobile platform. The most refined, lightweight construction ever to evolve on land. The irony is precise. The largest land animal was also the most air-filled. For 100 million years, sauropods walked every continent. They survived climate shifts and extinction pulses that erased smaller, less adaptable forms. Their design wasn't a dead end. It was a long-running success story written in bone. Remember the first image you had? The giant reptile, something gothic and heavy. Now look again at the skeleton. The hollow bones, the pillar legs, the ligament-supported neck, the air sac network that filled the rib cage like an architectural framework. The case is closed. For now, the remains of these giants still stand in museums, but now you know what you're looking at, a building that walked.